Okay, so in question 8, we're going to suppose that 80% of Australian teenagers use a smartphone. If a random sample of 20 teenagers is chosen from this population, determine the probability that the sample proportion lies within one standard deviation of the population proportion. Use mathematical reasoning to justify your response. Now, the first thing that I would do in the exam is I would grab my formula booklet and I would go to the back where we've got all of our formulas to go along with statistics. That way you'll be able to see clearly what you have, what you want. So let's start picking apart the question. So first thing I'm going to pull out is that 80% of all Australian teenagers. So that means that the mean is equal to 0.8. Next thing that we want to do is we want to find, we've got that n, just that is the mean. This is n, and we've got 20 in the sample. Now, when I look through my formula booklet, straight away I see something that's got p and it's got n, which means that I can calculate the standard deviation in the sample. So our standard deviation is going to be equal to p, 1 minus p, all over n. So that's going to be the square root of 0.8 bracket 1 minus 0.8 bracket all over 20. Now, when I chuck that in, it gives me that the standard deviation is 0.08944. So let's keep reading through the question. So we've so far found the mean, the number in the sample, the standard deviation. If we want to determine the probability that the sample proportion lies within one standard deviation of the population proportion, it means that we're going to be looking to see here, that's the mean, so that's 0.8. We want to go plus 1 standard deviation and minus 1 standard deviation. So that's going to be, for this one here, 0.8 minus 0.08944, which gives me 0.71056. And on this one over here, we're going to do 0.8 plus 0.08944, which is going to give me 0.08944. Okay, so what I've currently found is if we're looking at this in terms of z-scores, our probability is going to be between this up to our z-score of 0.88944. Now, it's tempting to throw this into your calculator straight away, but we need to think about this a little bit further. So we've got the range that we want. We want to know this area at the moment. So all we really have to do to figure this out is we need to convert them back into being actual scores, because our question is requiring that we are looking at the actual scores. Okay, so to find out what the lower of my range and the upper of my range are, I'm going to do this one times 20, which will give me 14.212, and this one times 20, which will give me 17.79. Now, we're talking about Australian teenagers using smartphones. So that is a discrete value. So I'm looking for the next whole numbers that fall in this range so that we can calculate those. So if you're thinking about this, here's the range that I want. There's 14.212. If I choose 14, that's outside, which is why I'm taking the 15 inside. Same thing happens with the 17. I want to take 17, not 18, because it falls outside of the range. So I'm saying now that if I want to calculate the probability that the sample proportion lies within one deviation of the population proportion, this has become a binomial probability question. I'm really trying to determine what is the probability now that I get 15 or 16 or 17 smartphone users. So when we start doing that, that means that we're going to go over to our fun statistics button, distribution, binomial, BCD. Our lower is going to be 15. Our upper is going to be 17. We're doing 20 trials, and the probability is 0.8. There you go. So we find out that the probability of this is equal to 0.598 or 59.8%. Okay, so that is the probability that the sample proportion lies within one standard deviation of the population proportion.